Carol, could you do roll, please?
Vice Mayor Dick G. is absent. Councilmember Dan Landrum.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Spalding.
Here.
Councilmember Amy Speak.
Here.
Mayor Chris Howley.
Here. Let's roll right into discussions. LPRF grant project.
We'll speed things up right off the bat and pull that from the agenda.
Okay. What is it? Just
It's the renovations for Driver and Marion Field. We have some cost estimates in, and they're beyond what we're willing to pursue, so we're going back and we told them these are the things we'd like to accomplish, but we may not be able to. Let's get that pricing, and then we'll make it down if we need to. So we'll do that and get, if we're going to move forward with it, we'll get it to you prior to the next regular meeting.
We're still looking good for the grant, though?
Well, I think, yeah, the project is good. We'll just need to whittle it back a little bit on what all we can do.
All right. Next on the agenda is MACC lease and MOA, memorandum of agreement, or I suppose usually MOU? Understanding?
In this case, it needs to be an MOA.
All right, will you hit that, please?
Sure. Really just wanted to get this, as we've said several times, these documents are the starting point for the discussion. They're not final. It's not a recommendation. It is simply meeting with the folks in the nonprofit, seeing what they had in mind. Obviously, as we put that together, we built in some of the things that the town would need to have considered. These have gone to Phil. He's reviewed them and said they're good as preliminary documents to start the discussion. And that we have these in hand now, really, the agenda for today was to identify how you want to move forward in these discussions and so forth.
I have not, I received these, I think, yesterday or the day before. I have not had a chance to go through them yet, so I'm really not prepared to make any comments on them yet. Is it okay if we delay this to the next agenda meeting? Is that going to cause a huge, Ms. Landrum, will that cause a huge problem for y'all?
Well, the sooner you come to an agreement, the better.
If it's delayed a month, is that going to be an issue?
We just can't send in our application until we have a lease agreement, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
I had a little concern about, seems like there's some differences of opinion between the MACC board and the newly found 501(c), and I didn't know if we were going to be discussing some of those comparisons today, or just specifically, since we're going to be putting this off, this will be another month. I didn't know if there was any, I thought I had read an email where there was a little concern about who was going to have authority more so than one, and I was just trying to...
I received a couple of emails to that effect, and I'd just like the time, number one, to go through this. Again, I think all the parties involved are very well-intentioned and very good folks and doing good stuff for the community, but I'd like to talk to them a little bit to understand what that means. I've already reached out to Becky, who's on the MACC board, and we heard from, obviously, Colleen and Lolly at the last meeting. So I'd like to be able to go over this, talk to those folks, and just understand a little better.
Yeah, I agree. I just didn't know if there was anyone that was presenting points of view this time or not.
Maybe we can schedule that for, yes, ma'am.
We're talking about having a meeting Tuesday night, a regularly scheduled advisory board meeting. So that would be a great time for you guys to come hear both sides.
Yeah, I'm gonna be out of town next week, but
I've got Tuesday, Thursday's got a problem, but I would like to know the substance of that. Will Dick be in town is he the liaison?
he's been the one kind of handling this, so.
Yeah,
Again,
I'd like to
another
hear from
reason
Dick
to
as
go.
well.
And I thought he said that Terry Cannon and his group may bring something. I don't know the status of that. I haven't talked to Terry, so if that's off the table, then I think, I think we should look at this and judge it on its merits.
Could we have a discussion about whether or not we as a council think we would ever sell the MAC or lease it to a private individual? But in particular, let's just say sell it, because that's Terry's thing is an outright deal.
I don't think we need to unless there's not an offer to sell it. We're debating something that's not on the table, is that right?
Would you be willing to, do you think the town would be willing to sell the MAC?
I
Would
have
you as
no
a
idea.
council member be willing to
I
sell?
don't know, it's not an option.
I think under the right circumstances, I mean, Terry and Steve have done some great work, and if they commit in the agreement to keep it what it is as a MAC and run it that way, I just have to see it, but, you know, I think you put all options on the table.
But
and you
that
discuss
option
them.
isn't on the table, so
It-
why don't we wait till it's on the
Well,
table
I
before we
agree.
take up?
We could take the option off the table as a council that we wouldn't be willing to sell the MAC more than we would be willing to sell town hall.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to hear about the principals at the MAC first to see what their thought process is for some of these extra, I mean, we got a offer that you mentioned from this Terry, then we have the concerns. I'm just trying to figure out how we coordinate,
Just so you know, I don't know if we
Communication.
have an offer from Terry.
and
That's-
again.
Just
my
express
point. There's-
interest.
And again, I'm just saying the discussion about an offer, as opposed to an actual offer, that's obviously a new concept. I don't know how everybody rationalizes with it, and I do respect the principals that have been there for a period of time to see what their thought process is, and so I'm just trying to see, do we need to have a separate MAC meeting just where we're dealing with that as a principal?
Might be a good idea. And if we can do that before the next agenda meeting,
Yeah.
then we can actually move this along as, you know, Ms. Landrum said.
It's almost like-
Obviously,
it's almost like-
Proceed as we are with everything in front of us until there's a reason not to.
I mean, it's
There's
almost
no
like.
offer on the table to talk
With
about.
the water thing, we've got public hearings about this, I don't know how much input, do we need more input like that to
Well,
come
that's-
to a decision?
That's where I am right now. I'm not comfortable. I haven't been able to study this enough and understand where everything is,
Right.
so.
But before we discussed sitting on RFPs for the water company, we determined that that was something that we would be willing to do. I want to be clearly on record. We don't sell the MAC. We don't sell our town's oldest, most historic building. We just don't do it. And I'd like to understand under what circumstances you guys would be willing to do that. Are there circumstances under which
I
you'd be
thought you
willing?
had brought that proposal
No.
or suggestion.
No, I did not.
Okay.
It was-
I'm just-
it was
I'm
Pointed
trying-
at me, but I didn't either, so.
Well, it was made to look as, I want to be clear, because first, this is going to be frustrating, but we got to talk about it. The MAC is in the situation it is right now because of a history of our not taking care, it's not anybody on this council, but there's tons of deferred maintenance that just didn't get done. I got Becky's letter. She mentions an arts and culture department. We don't have an arts and culture department in Signal Mountain. That doesn't exist. We have the MAC, and that's the one place where that takes place. We have a situation where during our budget time last year, we did not come up with enough money to sprinkle the entire building, which meant an immediate hit to the programs and the people who use the MAC, including the folks from the Lions Club who use the back part. That's something we did as a council. We made a decision that had an impact on the back part of the building. Nothing was going to happen. I'm not shilling at this point. It's interesting, when you speak negatively, it seems like someone is looking out for your interests. When you speak optimistically about something, it seems as if you're trying to sell somebody something. So I'm not trying to sell the nonprofit at this moment, but someone had to step up and say, hey, we don't want the back part of this building to close, because the council made the decision to allow that to happen, at least temporarily. That's where that idea came from, just so you know. I mean, it kind of sprung out of that. People saying, we want to raise money to not close the back part of the building by paying for it ourselves. Citizens got involved, and they didn't get involved with letter writing campaigns. They got involved by picking up paintbrushes and scrapers and going to Ace Hardware and buying paint and actually working to make things better. And I assume that's gonna continue to happen regardless of what we do. I wanna make it really clear, I didn't bring Terry Cannon to the table. And Terry Cannon was told twice, Chris, that he should contact the nonprofit board, and you told him twice, Cheryl was in the room, that he should contact me. That happened, and that's not how the thing should have gone down. And because of that, it created, I think, what's a false impression that I might be willing to sell the MACC. I'm not willing to sell the MACC. I just want to
Who's
be,
accusing you of that? Like, what are we talking
it
about?
doesn't matter if
I don't think you're
anyone-
trying, I don't think you're willing to sell the MACC.
I would like to
Are
finish.
we in third grade here?
Are we as a council willing to sell the MACC? That's something we can discuss right now. We can put on our big boy pants and talk about that.
I'm not personally willing to entertain that idea until we get our infrastructure at least complete, because I do think that the 501(c) is essential in raising money, and you have to have that aspect, but then you can't have conflict with the board and the idea of one superseding the other, and I think that's where it seems by some of the letters I've read that there's a butting of heads between those two potential entities, and I want to see if that's the case or not the case before we ever entertain something else like an offer on the table of something like that. I would not be in favor of it. Some of what was explained to me is that it's purchased here, but it's sold back later, and again, those are scenarios I'm just not comfortable with even discussing right now. So I'd like to see our basic infrastructure that we went forward with a year ago with the idea of having a fundraising component, but we also have an operational component or direction by the board. And so everybody's in the same vein as far as understanding who is going to direct it and who's going to support it with funding. Those are the questions I'd rather have answered right now before we start going off on something like a sale, simply because I think that's too much for me to handle right now. And I'm sure that's more than other people are willing to discuss. That's my opinion.
So do we want to discuss that? Do we want to have that conversation now, prior to talking about the lease agreement? Because that's okay.
Well, based on my understanding, we're going to table this, we're going to look at this lease in detail, and then have a future date to discuss that.
But that's not what you're pointing to. You're pointing to relations between the existing board and the nonprofit.
And again,
That's a
part
separate
of that is in this contract as well, as far as those two understandings about, for me, for just my own edification, to read this and understand what they're asking for in this particular agreement. And since it's been suggested that we look at it later because we haven't had time to adequately read it. I'm in agreement of that, but I don't want to delay the fundraising arm because that's important too. But at the same time, I'm not prepared to make any major decisions today. As far as, I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, I'm not asking for a major decision. I'm saying, should we discuss that relationship and that? And are you saying no because you think it's tied into the lease agreement?
Well, I think all of that pertains to understanding that component of it, what they're asking for in this lease agreement, and if that is in concert with everything that is understood by the two groups that are working together. Because it just seems like, based on some of these feedbacks, and again, you get various feedbacks, you get and you're just wanting to understand those concerns, and that's what I want to do, is understand those concerns. I would like to have somebody like Sandra give me some history about where she feels like it should be operational. I'd like to hear from Barb again, now that we've got all these outside considerations, about what needs to be done. What is the principal role of the 501(c)? Because in the previous history, there was some friction between those two entities, and I don't want to see that go forward the way I understand it historically took place.
Is that something you think that we can legislate? I mean, from the council? The meetings that the groups are trying to have, where everyone sits down and talks, seems like the place for that to happen, and there's one of those next week. Is it possible you can make it to that one?
Well, I have training Tuesday and Thursday, so those
What-
are the only times I can
We
do
could,
it.
I could try to do a different night.
Of course, we have the water thing on Wednesday, is that correct?
Right now, that's when it's scheduled.
Yeah, so I mean, if it was rescheduled for the water and then scheduled for that, I would be happy to
You're
attend.
in town,
Yeah, for Wednesday night, but not Tuesday and Thursday.
yeah. I think if,
You guys do Friday. Can you do Friday then?
Friday next week is Good Friday.
People will be out of town since the start of spring break. It's Thursday spring break, it's Passover, it's Good Friday. and
Friday's the
Thursday
only day I
is spring
can
break.
do next week, because I'm out all next week, and then spring break I'm out.
I don't think it's a good idea to schedule something during spring break. People will not be available to be involved, and it will look like a deliberate attempt to schedule something when people can't come. That would be the perception.
But we have indicated that we want to schedule a specific meeting for these discussions, is that correct?
What does that meeting look like? Is that just us on the council, or are we getting other folks? to-
no, so I want to clarify, what we're talking about right now is what the people who are concerned about arts and culture in Signal Mountain are trying to all work out. Everybody's concerned about BART, everybody's concerned about what these guys, the nonprofit, have been donating time and money and love to this whole thing. Your concerns are legitimate. I think, you know, and I know my friends who've been involved on the board, I could potentially anger you because you have a passion for this as well. And you come from a place, what we would all like, everybody in here who loves the arts would stand up and cheer if the council would go, you know what, we made a mistake. We should have funded the sprinkler system for the entire building. And we should support arts and culture in Signal Mountain. But the fact is, we've gotten to this place by putting things off and putting things off, and we're about to go into another budget year. And so I'm a little concerned that the curtain is falling, if you want to look at it from an arts standpoint, that we are about to move back into the same place we were before, and nothing new happens. And it continues to deteriorate because of lack of love from councils. Past, present, future.
The only thing I can say is I thought we had done a pretty good job, and was it nearly 100, 200, how much was it that we?
300,000.
300,000. I mean, that to me
But I don't
is
think
no
it's been spent.
insignificant
Nothing's been
amount of commitment
And
to that.
And
Hold up on
we're
that
all to
statement.
be commended for voting for that, but we were,
Just got the approval.
Okay.
we were 70,000 shy
So it's gonna.
Hey.
of sprinkling the entire building so that the Lions Club can still meet there.
Dan, he may have an update, because I have been very curious. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Can
We
you share
just-
that? Because that's exciting,
Just got the
actually.
approval from the state for those plans, so we can move forward with that project.
Is there a start date?
No, we'll be bidding it out shortly.
Okay.
Understand that moving forward means the back part of the building gets closed. So in a sense, I mean, that feels like good news, but that means you guys are out of place. It means the amount of classes that are at the MACC get cut
And what,
back.
and the
It means a cut.
alternative is what? Are you proposing?
At the time, it was $70,000 in order to sprinkle the entire building and have things running. If nothing else, I'm
I mean,
putting
I would
in-
love to fund that, I really would. I just, I don't know where that money would come from. And I would appeal to Boyd to find out, if that's even possible. I mean, ideally, we did set parameters at the time we did the 300,000, so I'm just wondering, where do we pull from to do something like that? I mean, I don't know.
Does the nonprofit have funds to contribute to that 70? Or
There-
the Friends of, what's the balance?
There's $27,000.
Oh, that's great.
That's not the nonprofit.
That's
Okay,
not-
sorry.
that's
But
not-
there's $27,000.
$27,000.
That's,
Is that in the 30, is that in the 300?
that's already.
Oh, that's in the
accounted for.
300.
No, it's not.
No,
All
it's
right,
not.
all right, please. Oh. Can you explain that?
I think you guys are talking about two different things, because they have some money at the community foundation
Yes.
right now that is not a part of that 300,000.
To my knowledge, that's never been offered forward for this project, so
Right.
I didn't know that's what they were talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Okay,
yeah, so-
that's great. That's
Plus,
encouraging.
plus I think the nonprofit in the last
So first
month
time
has
over that.
raised 7,000? 6,000, just in the last month or so with
To add
events.
to that amount.
To add to that amount. So
Small amount.
we're getting so close. Now, we also understand there's the whole thing about messing up the work that's beginning, but once that work begins, once a hammer is, taking something down, we can potentially start looking at a phase 2 that is being funded and we're moving forward on.
I would just like, for purposes of our discussions, to not make it about those who support the arts and don't, because I support the arts and I want to see the MACC thrive as well. So I think what we're talking about when we talk about restoring the MACC and all the history of how, whatever reason we got to where we're at, those are the reasons, and we can't change that. It's coming down to where are we going to find the funding. And it's like that with every other building or sports or water or whatever. It's going to come down to how do we fund it. We just did the budget, things are tight. If they're coming to the table with money and another area that we manage is coming to the table with money, then there's something to talk about. But don't make it about those who support the arts and those who don't.
I'm not, but it is about real decisions that we really make that affect the future of this. Plus, the thinking that got us to this position is not sufficient to get us out of the position we're in. We have to think out of the box. All the arts community has got to be for each other. We have to communicate and support each other to get this thing done. And I want to be careful. It's not like I'm accusing you or anybody of anything, but and I wish Dick was here. But even Dick's participation, as far as the council's participation, he only attended 2 board meetings in the past year. There's a lot of history within that got us to this place. There's a reason the board feels frustrated. The town, and Boyd, everyone's ox gets gored here. This is why this is unpleasant, but this is discussion and this is when we're supposed to happen. The town has its hands full running the town all the time. There is not an arts and culture department. Am I saying that correctly? There is not one. It doesn't exist. So basically, it's us. And I agree. I'm glad you're on the board because I know you're an art supporter. And I'm glad you're on the board. I know you're an art supporter. I've been concerned, Chris, because you said at the budget meetings last year, twice, I've got it all written down, I would like to see the MACC off the books, off the town's books. So that leads me to believe you have a predisposition towards actually selling it. As a council member, I'm willing to fall on this sword. I don't think we should even consider it.
You're wrong. I don't have a predisposition to selling it.
When you said you wanted it off the books, how would it be off the books?
I want the management of it off the books. Dick knows this better than anyone else because he was one that brought it in-house. We used to have a nonprofit that managed the operation over there.
No.
Which
That's
we then had.
that's not true.
It wasn't a town department 8 years ago. 10 years ago?
Yes.
Who ran the hodgepodge?
It's a private organization.
And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. I don't think there's an accurate understanding by us.
And
that's-
therefore, when we started this whole discussion was, I need to study it more. I have to read an MOU. I can't make a decision on this until I understand this. 501, we never had a presentation from this group. This group never came to us and said, here's what we're gonna do. Here's the financials of it. Here's
Yes.
XYZ.
Isn't that what this is?
Yes, they did. Both Cheryl and Angie have sat in that seat.
They sat there and answered a couple of questions, but nobody's laid out a proposal on, here's what we're gonna do. I have no idea where we are.
They laid out
I haven't gotten through this yet. I don't know what Phil and them discussed.
They laid out
The
enough.
board has contacted me and can I finish or you wanna,
Yes,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I apologize.
All right. The board has contacted me and said they don't know what's going on. So that leads me to the same concern that Bob has, I need to understand this. I've scheduled a meeting with some folks on the board so I can sit down and get the history and understand this. I support the arts too. All my kids went there. They all learned something there. My son's into acting. Other one does piano. I've got no problem. I think it's one of the things that makes our community unique. But I also think there's significant options, several options, on how we manage it. My preference is the people who are most involved and most invested are the ones running it as opposed to the town. And I've said that from the beginning. I don't want it to go away. I also think the discussion has been, and Dick's been on this board a lot longer than anybody else here, so he was back when some of these transitions took place, and I was not. But in the last few years, we've lost some of the fundraising mechanisms. Like, I thought Hodgepodge was great. But since we've been managing it all through the town and paying the bills, those things are going away. I'd love to see them come back.
That's not because of that.
Yeah, those aren't MACC issues, and some of what these issues are.
I need to understand.
Yeah,
That's why I said at the beginning.
That's why the discussion that we're having right now is a good one. This is what should happen at council so that we get things on the table so that we can discuss it. And that's why meeting with these groups and listening to them as opposed to telling them is a really good idea to find out what some of the problems are. And even the
Let's
problems,
set up the meetings.
even the problems with the past boards come down to those kinds of communications issues. The problems with past nonprofits, it's just people not communicating with each other.
So bottom line is, we're handling and trying to come to a solution because of the place we've been put in from previous boards' decisions.
Well,
There's a lot of it.
our board put
I'm not
the
throwing
MACC.
anybody under the bus, but I really need to study it and understand where we are, because I think there's a ton of moving parts here. I am against, we voted for, and we all voted to want to save the front of that building. I'm 100% for that, still am. I think the MACC, and we've had the discussions before earlier, is the MACC services and the MACC buildings don't necessarily have to be together. I'm not saying I'm for it, but that was a large part of the discussion 4 years ago when I first got on the council. It wasn't me who said that, but that was one of the things that came up.
So under some circumstance, you would be willing to sell the building?
Yeah, just like under some circumstances, I'd be able to lease the building on a 20-year lease.
Can I tell you why I'm vehemently opposed to that?
Sure.
When we're all dead and gone 100 years from now, that building should belong to this town, and it's worth more than it is now. It's at that place now where it seems like a liability because it needs help. But once it passes a certain age, it is way more important than any of our short little lifetimes for a town to have its culture and its heritage preserved in some way. This is the only thing. This is it. And you sell it once, and you've given up those rights.
That's
But we're
not
not,
true.
that's not, you
That's
guys,
not
back
true.
up, it's
I
not
know.
on the table.
It's not even
Why are
on
we
the
having
table.
this
Nobody's
discussion?
given us an offer. You can always have
We're
first right of
literally
refusal.
debating
You
something
can
that
require
isn't-
them to keep it as a MACC. If they don't, it reverts back to us, just like when we bought it. If we put a school in there or we put a class in there, it reverts back to the county. There are things there are certain very strict parameters that I would consider a sale. But one of those parameters is it'd have to stay for the current use it is. And we would have to have first right of refusal if we wanted it back. So 100 years when we're dead and gone, they have the choice that they can get that building back. But it's not on the table. So we're discussing something that's not even an
If
option
it
right now.
becomes on the table, I think, I agree with you 100%, let's have the discussion, but for right now, for purposes of our agenda, it's not an option, there is no offer on the table.
So you are willing to entertain an offer to sell the MACC?
I'm not willing or not willing to, you keep trying to pigeonhole everyone, Dan. I'm saying we're debating a hypothetical situation.
No.
There's no offer. So we can sit here and talk about if we want to sell the pool. Would you sell the pool?
Yeah,
And
that's
we
a
can
good-
go
that's a
around and
good-
we can all.
No, that's a good
I
question.
don't want to
Under a
waste time
certain
talking
scenario, I
about
would.
it because it's not an option. No one's offering to buy the pool.
Yeah.
If someone offers to buy the pool, then let's have the conversation.
Somebody said, here, I'm gonna come in and give you 20 million for the pool, we'll keep it as a pool, we'll manage it, we'll pay all expenses. If it ever not a pool again, it'll revert back to you, blah, blah, blah.
Actually, that one
Sure.
couldn't.
There
because
are certain
that-
scenarios
look,
under
wait,
anything that makes
just
sense.
to stay in the realm of reality, that couldn't
Well,
happen with the,
you've already taken us out of reality because there's nothing on the table. That's not reality.
the pool could not be sold because of the way it was deeded to the town first. The MAC could be, that's a decision we can make. And it's not like we're talking about a ridiculous hypothetical. We
Let's
are,
wait until we have something to debate.
This is not even an argument. I don't know of
We're
anybody
having an
who's-
argument over
who's
potentially having an
offered to buy
argument.
it.
the question I'm asking is it for sale at a price?
I don't know. Can you answer that so we can move on?
I mean, as of right now, I think that it sounds like not a good idea to even entertain it. I want to know about the infrastructure that we have right now. I don't want
So
to
do
look at
I.
another potential, because that's all that is a potential question. And to me, there's nothing hardcore in that. Right now, I just want to understand our infrastructure so it can go forward based on what we have as resources right now. And that's what I want to focus on, is make sure that that the daily operation is working with the board, and the board's working with the nonprofit, and everybody's on the same page. And we as a council look at this lease and make sure that all those components all jive together, and that's a lot of coordination that we need to do.
Doctor, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're gonna have to RFP this, correct? Now that the state's given us approval.
Oh, for the
Yeah,
construction.
right. Can we get an ad extra on what it would cost to sprinkle the rest of the building when we RFP it?
Yes, one way or the other. We already have the sprinkler contract.
I understand, but we still have to RFP at the front, which contains that.
No, I think the sprinkler contract is existing. They have,
Does the sprinkling go before we redo the front or after
it
we?
will be in conjunction with exactly when will be determined by the
So
contractor.
we don't have to RFP the sprinkler piece of it?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a price?
We had an original price and a revised price to just do the front.
Can we get that price updated so we understand how much more above the 300,000 we'd have to spend? And if this group or that group or whoever has the additional money was willing to put in, then we know the number we're talking about to be able to sprinkle the whole building. Is that
Yeah, I think that's.
fair going forward?
Yes.
We
Yeah,
can
and I
afford
appreciate
it,
that.
and they can come.
And I would like
I
to,
think that's
then we
fine.
have that amount. I would
Right.
like to do more studying on this. Whoever's writing in the paper, it's not Mayor Howley wants to sell the MACC. That is not what happened here.
That is what's gonna
He
happen.
asked if under any scenario, sure, there's a scenario. I'd entertain it. It's not on the table. All right?
I do not.
Right.
I don't understand. I
Can we move on?
Please.
We good?
Sounds good.
I just want to make it clear and on the record that no one here agreed to any particular amount to be spent because we don't know. I think when that comes up, if we do find that maybe it's 90,000 or whatever, then, and these guys have raised, $62,000 or, whatever, it shouldn't stop it from happening. It's still another step. I'm putting this out there so that at a later date, it doesn't come up and
But to correct
that these guys just agreed.
To
that they
correct
paid.
your hypothesis there, this council has agreed to spend $300,000 to fix the theater and fix up the front of that building. All right, so that we have agreed to.
Yes.
All right, that's on record. You
Yep.
said we haven't agreed to amount. That amount's on record.
I wasn't trying to say that, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Made it sound like
I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Yeah.
And we've got approval from the state, so we can RFP it, and start moving forward. And we're gonna find out what the sprinkler is, and we'll consider that as a council and go to vote on that.
Absolutely.
Good?
And I will say for the
Happy?
record,
Hey, all right.
if the people people that are, whatever the group is called, I don't wanna say the wrong name, that is raising money, if they're coming to the table with money, just like the cages are, and saying,
Just
we've
like the
raised
baseball and
this
everybody
much
else,
amount of money, council, what can you do? I am all for that if we have the money, because that's the way it works.
We good?
Yeah.
Can we go?
I
All right.
want to add one other thing. There is one of the reasons you need a nonprofit to be fully vested as a 501c3 is because, and just consider there, having spoken to Cornerstones and Gray at Cornerstone and some other organizations, there is additional money that's available under arrangements where the town is not managing it. You open up some things. And so as we slow this process down, we make it harder to get our hands on those funds that help with programs, help with building, help with everything. So
Well, hopefully the rest of us also educate ourselves enough that we can make the right decision on this. And I think that's important as well.
Okay. next.
Can we move?
Yes.
All right. Water system proposal. Boyd?
As you know, we've begun the process of public meetings, first meeting last night, which I think went very well. But we wanted to revisit, we do have the third meeting is scheduled for the week of spring break. That's been brought up, and a request to reschedule that and just generally revisit that schedule. Now that we've had a meeting, get direction from council if you want any different format for those meetings, anything you want us to do differently, anything like that. So this is not a discussion of the proposals, but how we move forward dealing with those proposals.
how do you feel about the spring break meeting?
I think it's a waste of time. There's gonna be so many people out of
I think we
town.
ought to-
Hey, it goes back to what somebody just said in the
It's
crowd.
gonna look like we
Yeah, we're
did it on
scheduling turn.
purpose, and I know I won't be there, will you be there?
As
So
I
then it'll look
said,
like we weren't there on purpose.
when we scheduled it on 3 different weeks, 3 different days of the week, trying to give options. Didn't really catch that spring break week.
Can
And
we
and
push it
as
a
I've
week?
said all along, you start with a schedule because you have to have a schedule.
Yeah.
If you need to adjust that, extend it, shorten it, whatever, we can do that. So
Can I move
I
that,
would
do
say
I need to move that we reschedule that one? Does that need to be
not,
done
I
by?
don't think that has to be that formal, but
I think we just
You
push
can do it
it
that
all
way.
back a week, just take that week out.
schedule for the following week.
And when was,
Yeah.
when was
Yeah.
it?
I move we do what Amy's suggesting, we just.
That was
Let's just push it back after,
What day was it? I'm
so
sorry.
the spring break meeting would just
I
be the
understand.
following
What
week.
was the date?
Oh, I don't know.
Was third. It was the third that week.
4/3? And that's a
And
Tuesday?
are both parties available? I guess we need to make sure you could be there.
Wait, we had
Are
somebody
you
from
able to
Tennessee
be there?
American.
Okay.
Are you guys, and we have one next week, right?
Yes.
Next week is the
Is the
spring break,
problem,
right?
is that the
No,
problem?
next week is not,
Wait, what's today?
next week is not.
You're right, it's the following,
But do
sorry.
we have a meeting next?
Next Wednesday, we're scheduled. And then the following week, which is spring break, we were scheduled for Tuesday, which was the 3rd, so that would push it back to the 10th. And we would.
That's the day after our regular meeting.
Right.
Okay.
We would still have a Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday scenario. But again, that is the night after our regular meetings.
It's the same thing that we had last night, right? So council isn't expected to be at every single meeting because it's the same presentation, right?
Are you guys good on the 10th?
Yes.
Good on the 10th?
Yes.
Okay.
That's gonna be up to the entities.
6:30.
They will have the same opportunity,
I got you.
but
Okay.
just as we go through a meeting and may think of questions that we haven't asked, they've been through a meeting and they may decide they want to touch on something in their presentation that they had.
Can we shorten the presentation time so we can open up for more public comment
Well, I
and
anticipate
council comment?
that questions from the town will probably be lessened as we as we move forward, so there will be more time for citizens. It's what I anticipate.
Yeah, these guys shouldn't have to go through their presentation, same whole blown 3 times in a row.
I'm just saying they have that option. We will provide them the option to do a presentation at the beginning of each one. If they choose not to, or if they want to change the presentation to touch on things they hadn't, that just.
Can we make sure they both forwarded, at my request, their presentations? Can we put both those on the town website, so folks who couldn't be there can go through it? All right.
And one thing, for those of you guys from the water companies, there's a video of it posted if you want to look back. If you go to YouTube and you just do a search for Signal Mountain Water RFP, you'll find it that way.
Can you get that in paper too for us?
Oh, you tell me, it's gonna, what he just said.
The next meeting for the water will be
Yeah.
next Monday? No,
Next,
Wednesday.
Wednesday. So that's that, and then on, Tuesday, April 10th, they're both at 6:30 in the gym. And then we have the full video from it on, can you tell her again, Dan?
Yeah, just, the URL's a bunch of numbers, just.
Okay.
If
If
you
you
if you want to quote that, you should just look it up. Look up Signal Mountain Water RFP, and
And it
the
should
date,
come
you'll
up.
find it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. That helps us. So we're moving the second meeting to 4:10. I obviously won't make the next one, but I'll be at the 4:10 one. Is everybody okay with that?
So we still have one next week.
We have one next week on Wednesday, which is somebody help me,
28.
28 at 6:30 in the gym. And then April 10th at 6:30 in the gym, which is a Tuesday. Are you good with that? You gotta do the sound and video.
Oh, yeah,
You good?
I'm back.
Okay.
I'm out of town in between. Keith was a volunteer last night who moderated, and I don't know if you asked him if he would volunteer for 2 more meetings as well.
well, I told him if he was interested to let me know, and he said just let him know when the next meeting would be, that he might very well.
I think he did a good job, and I think it's important for everyone to understand that these are 2 reputable professional companies, and we really need to keep this as a question and answer and not people coming up saying, hey, I love you or I hate you.
Making statements.
Yeah.
That's more for the town council meetings when you can yell at us, instead of, I want to treat these folks professionally. They were kind enough to give us these proposals, regardless on what side of the coin you're on. Is that fair? Okay. Anything else on the water? Anything else we need to address? Okay.
Said if you have any requests or direction or anything on anything you want to do on format or questions you want to make sure you get in the mix, especially if you're going to miss a meeting, just let me know.
Now,
Otherwise,
was the Chief Mitchell gonna be making a presentation from a water standard as far as, did I misunderstand that at one time he was gonna make some kind of?
Chief's like, what?
as we enter as you.
I thought he was gonna give an assessment or something.
As you enter the decision-making phase, when you start considering these things, then certainly his input and others will be in play. These meetings are intended as an opportunity to educate council, staff, citizens as to the positions of the 2 companies. So the answer is yes, but not in these meetings. That's kind of, once we get through these meetings, council's comfortable, they have the information they need to start deliberating and considering these proposals. That's when we can seek that type of input.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody good? Schedule for future work sessions.
I asked him. Yeah, it's the one thing I've heard from the widest amount of people that are complaints about just how our government works, is that during the day, we have some pretty complex things that we do, and people are at work and they can't make it. And I honestly, this is gonna sound like just a whiner, but I feel like I'm putting in my time as I should, as a volunteer for this town. It's tough, because, I mean, I know it hits you, you know, as well. You can't see patients during this time. The meetings used to be in the evenings so that the public could attend. And I wonder if we ought to think about that again. Because we have so many complex things on the table.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know that agenda or work sessions have been in the evening. Not saying you're wrong, but I don't recall that.
Surprisingly, I do not agree with Dan, just because I think we have to be somewhat sensitive to our staff who are required to stay late for water meetings and regular meetings. And I prefer them during the day on Friday. That's just
As of right now, I agree with that.
my preference.
I would be willing to maybe alternate, or if there is something big on the table, provided it's not a 6-hour meeting. That is what is really hard, is we get down this rabbit trail, and I feel like from after 2 hours, all of us, myself included, are frustrated. It's harder to hear we don't get a lot accomplished except to banter back and forth, and I feel like we need to, all of us, myself included, be more concise and use our time more effectively. And I would be willing to do some at night, but I can't stay here till 10:30 at night.
I've already, and it's not about me, it's about whatever we decide as a council, obviously. But knowing exactly when these things are, you know, we had a discussion, we weren't gonna change these things because one or two people couldn't make it. I've already scheduled based on knowing that this is when they are. So I've scheduled my travel, future trips and things like that around knowing this is when it is. I think you also have some people that work in the evenings, on the evening shift. So I don't think we change it midstream. I think it's something for the council come November, because we got 6-8 months left. Let them decide. I think each council.
I think you're right, but that's privilege of
And
the new.
if it becomes a burden of one or two going forward, I have no problem moving it to one of the evenings if we've got to do that, if we all agree. But I would prefer to keep the schedule as is. People know we meet second Monday, they know we meet fourth at whatever, and I don't want to change it midstream. Let them decide in November, the new council, if they want to change it. That's just my 2 cents.
I'm fine with whichever.
Any other discussion for right now?
Just, if I can add to that, I appreciate your statement and consideration of staff and all, but for the record, we will
I know you'll do whatever's
do what we
required.
need to do.
I know you will, but I think at some level, we gotta be sensitive to the nights you guys continue to give up.
And one of the things that we might consider, as it's considered moving forward, the concern about making significant financial decisions at these meetings because of the same thing that has been mentioned, that generally a lot of people can't attend. If these meetings were also evening meetings, that might resolve that issue and allow things to be addressed more expediently.
Can we then say if we have significant financial issues to address, that because of the timeliness, that we talk about moving those to the evenings? I really don't want to do it on Friday night. I can tell you that.
I think the best scenario is that meetings are set and they're held unless there's a reason not to.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying we need to or we don't need to. I'm just saying an additional meeting is if that's council's decision, that's fine, and there could be some benefit to having those meetings in the evening.
I think we have to consider too, especially with the amount of work we're handling right now, with the several rezonings and the water, and we may need to throw another meeting in there. I mean, because we're just, we're handling a lot of stuff, and to your point, we're trying to pack it in, It's
It's a
ridiculous.
lot.
Last Monday was a 4-hour meeting. That's ridiculous. If we could split some of that stuff up, at least till we get through this busy period, and I have no problem having those meetings, in the evening, if that's
Well,
an
and
option.
It's also something to consider, and I always forget this, well, two things. One, the public can't converse in a work session, so it's literally just people being in the audience. But, I mean, the fact that you're videoing, I mean, I have a ton of people say, oh, I watched the work session, or I watched this part. So I don't feel as convicted to move them at night, although I'm willing to swap some here and there because it's gonna be harder for me to get here during the day too.
Just,
When do you propose?
I'm not, I just wanted to hear this discussion, because I think we should discuss it. The public can converse if we want them to. It's not like some rule somewhere that says they can't, it's just, it's based on.
No, but that's typically how we run them, and that's how we have run them. Are you proposing we change that?
No, I just wanted to clarify that. That
I knew
it's,
that.
it used to be that way more so that there was a little more communication, once upon a time from past councils, when the meetings were in the evenings, but you're remembering that differently, so,
I don't know.
yeah.
Like I said, I'm not,
And I wasn't, I could be wrong.
Do we feel we need an additional meeting in April?
well, we're still planning, as I understand it, to try to schedule a special meeting for the MACC topic, unless that's changed. So that's one additional meeting.
Can we handle more than the MAC in that?
We gotta get budget meetings scheduled too.
Yeah, when is that?
I said already budget. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Do you have that yet or no?
April 27th,
Uh-oh.
What time? Oh, it's all day.
that's an all day,
We start at 9, 10?
usually 9.
Oh, joys. April 27th, I'm sorry.
And this will all interesting,
That's that's May. I was gonna say Sunday, okay, so that's on the same day as our
that's our
agenda.
regular agenda meeting.
So we'll handle agenda items at the same time? And we might be able to move,
Generally not, but we can if we need to.
well, for the special MAC meeting, we may be able to move a couple small things if we need to at that time. Is that okay with everyone? Dan?
Yeah, I have no objections to what we're talking about. I just remember that the MAC meeting that citizens are talking about is different from anything that we would schedule for us. And it would be good for us as council members to be involved with citizens talking about the future.
Right, I don't think we're saying it's agenda meeting. I think we can still have open comment.
I mean, we call people up here all the time.
And we can handle more than one issue if we need to. Does anybody make a proposal for that MAC meeting date? We'll just call it additional meeting. Someone throw it out.
We
I don't have my
talking
calendar, so.
daytime or evening?
I think evening is better for most people, sounds like.
Yeah, I don't have my calendar, so I mean, you can throw out a date, but I can't commit to it.
Any suggestions?
I feel a little bit like it's premature to do it prior to when they've had a chance to meet, to find out what they have.
Who's they?
Well, all the citizens who are concerned about the MAC, from past, present boards, from people who are showing up and volunteering, from the
Well,
principals.
let's plan it
involved.
afterward, that's fine. Let us know when they meet, and then we'll plan a
I
date.
thought they're meeting Tuesday.
The discussion we had a few minutes ago was that it'd be great if Dr. Spalding could be involved in that, and so they talked, the general discussion was to try to make it so that Dr. Spalding at least could be involved, and as many other council members as possible, so that so we do get to work through all these issues. So I can't, and I'm not willing to set that up for them, they need to be able to.
Can we
schedule it.
shoot for the week of April 16th? MAC board, how's your, Wednesday's the only bad day on there for me.
What day is that? 16th?
The 16th is Monday, but that week, I'm good, Monday, Tuesday,
It's library board
Thursday.
meeting night,
which one?
16th.
17th, what do you got, 17th?
17th or
Is it what?
Charette.
Thursday?
I've got to check my calendar that
Okay.
week. I just don't.
Tentative, very tentative.
If it's here, we have court. It's a court night.
Can we use the guild room?
Is it possible to do the following week?
Yep, it sure is, and that gives you more time for
Yeah.
those
Okay,
groups to get
let's do it.
together. So that's April 23rd. I am,
Tuesdays and Thursdays might be a problem that week.
we have a town agenda that meeting that week on the 27th. So I think Monday or Tuesday?
Monday, there's another land use meeting.
Oh my goodness.
Tuesday?
Tuesday, Thursday, I gotta check my calendar.
Tuesday the 24th?
Tuesday, 24th is the normal MACC board meeting.
Okay.
Well,
That means
if we do this, you'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is
Dan,
April
does that work for you?
24th?
Yeah.
Well, but-
Why don't you guys
I
check?
gotta check.
Right.
I gotta check too.
And we'll check with Dick as well. But tentatively, very tentative.
MACC meeting. And we're gonna discuss all of this, the lease and everything?
Yeah. So then we can do our homework, meet with who we think we do to do our research and be better educated. We'll have the price, additional price on the sprinkler at the time. Angie, I'm sorry, Miss Landrum, is that, Mrs. Landrum, is that good?
That's good.
Okay. I didn't mean to be so informal. Good. Our topic though was, it's still scheduled for future work session. And
Basically,
we've added the 427, no, 424.
Have you set a time?
6 o'clock, or you want it later?
6:30.
6:30? 6:30.
Could we consider having that at the MAC?
I got no problem with that.
I don't care, that's fine.
Other than, I know I'll show up here and go,
tentatively.
recording and everything, as long as we get a recording.
Yeah, that, but
Can we talk about it in
April, yeah, we should be fine.
When's, anybody know Lions, anybody here from the Lions Club?
If we're able to get
Be in the back part anyway.
construction.
When's the April meeting?
going, so If we do it in the
It's second
cafeteria.
Tuesday
Yeah.
and the fourth Tuesday, so it'll be the 24th.
So what I just asked is if we could do it at the cafeteria, at the MAC, I think it would be
The
better.
Lions Club.
They got the Lions
Lions
there.
Club on second Tuesday and the fourth Tuesday.
Let's do it here. All right, tentatively here at 6:30 PM. The main reason for it is the MAC issue, and if there's some other things we need to handle, we'll handle. All right, June meeting schedule. Well, who's,
This is really gonna make things,
here we go.
we'll refer back to some of the points made here. But, to start it off, Vice Mayor G has asked me to, convey some information, which is very good in some sense, but also problematic in others. The very good upside is that on June 16th, he's getting married.
Wow.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. Probably a couple weeks thereafter, he's gonna be moving. He'll no longer be in the town. He'll be on the mountain, but not in the town. The requirements of the council indicate that if a reason for removal is that if a council member fails to maintain a bona fide residence for 60 days. So theoretically, there's about a 60-day window of opportunity to decide how that position's transitioned. But he thought it was important that this council be made aware of the scenario as soon as possible and have time to consider how you want to approach that. And since he wasn't able to be here today, he asked me to do that out of respect and just being as upfront and making people aware of what's going on as possible. Doesn't want to game the system or anything like that, but would certainly like to serve to the extent he can. But it's up to the council to decide at what point and how you want to transition. You are required to appoint someone. If you don't appoint someone to the position, basically the election commission will take it upon themselves to have a special election. So that,
And then they send you the bill.
yeah. So that is one part of it.
Can you go over our options for how we as a council are to replace him if it comes to that?
It is my understanding that it is purely your discretion. Majority vote of council to appoint someone to fill that position.
Including Dick? Well, we only have 4 voting, so you have a potential tie, that's why.
That is a good question. It's generally it addresses how to fill vacancies, assuming that a vacancy exists.
So
You're dealing with it preemptively, so he's still in position. I don't know.
can I know we've been dealing in hypotheticals, but can I put a hypothetical out here to find out if this is what we're looking at?
Sure.
All right. So
I don't know that I'll have the answer, but
I know.
we can discuss it.
So what you're saying is we would come and suggest candidates and then first, second, and vote them in.
Right.
Okay.
But they would only finish out the term until,
They just
because
finish out
his term is up in
But they have to
November.
be a resident of
Have
Centennial.
to be a resident.
So it would have to meet the requirements of someone that would run,
Okay.
but the appointment would only be for the remainder of his term.
What poor person are we gonna saddle with this?
Well, could we do it like we do board positions and actually, make it known that this is something that's gonna be up and people that would be interested, so that we had a bit of a resume and know that we had folks that were interested, and then if possible, we could ask them questions. Because it is, on a 5-person council, it matters. Every vote matters.
I'm
It's
gonna,
got- I mean, whether we
just
want
gonna
it to be
bring
or
a
not,
couple
it's gonna
names
be
to the
political.
table.
And just do it like how we did the judge. then
I'm just
come with
gonna
whoever
bring a
you
couple
think.
names, and if you don't wanna do it that way, we'll go some other route.
Otherwise, it's gonna drag out for like.
I think we should all look around for some folks.
Do we elect a judge this August? Is that when that comes up again?
We took applications, we had to advertise it, it took 2-3 weeks, and then we went through the applications, we questioned them at least once. It's
I don't think it's what he's saying.
3-4 months.
The actual election for judge is this coming August.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Can the judge serve?
I don't think he can serve in both capacities at the same time.
Okay.
How did Walden do it when Dr. Peterson vacated his seat?
They made the appointment, but I don't know how they solicited, if they solicited, for lack of a better term, applications, or they simply nominated someone. That detail I'm not aware of.
I'm curious.
Thank you for that information. And congratulations on the record to Dick, that is
Yes,
fabulous, I'm
that
so
is
happy for him.
Really exciting.
That is part of the
Initiative.
reason we originally had the June meeting schedule on there. Initially was to ask you to consider moving the June meetings from the 11th to the 18th for the regular meeting, and then the same for the other meeting. There's actually 5 Fridays in the month, so we could actually shift them a week. And admittedly, selfishly, my request being that we are planning a vacation, and the only week available for the condo we have access to is the week of the 10th.
Why do we have to shift both then?
Well, if we
Is it too
shifted the first one, it would be, we'd have a Monday meeting and then the meeting
Is it
would follow on Friday.
What is the
Now,
current agenda meeting date? 6 what?
6:22.
6:22, and it would be moved to 6:29?
9.
I am,
Bad?
no, yeah.
That's a work session or council?
Work session.
thinking about both. Now, again, with what we just discussed, Dick will be out of pocket on the 18th. So,
26 okay with, or 29th
9th?
okay with everybody right now?
I am, no, it's not,
No?
I'm booked out for that entire week out of town.
the June 11th is the second reading of the ordinance. So at that point, we will be pretty much through the process. We'll have a public hearing and second reading.
For the law?
No, for the budget.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry.
So if it's not feasible to reschedule that, then I can look at whatever options we have. At that point,
If we
I may be able
reschedule-
to have someone sit in my stead.
We reschedule the first one. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, 3 days later, 4 days later.
So,
I think we need to do what we can to accommodate, the
Jen,
town
are you
manager.
okay missing that work session, or is that,
It's not a work session, it's a regular meeting we're talking about.
I thought it was
No,
for
no.
29th.
29th is the
29th is the agenda.
I mean, I don't know what we'll be talking about, so I want to make sure you're comfortable if we made that decision. Won't be there.
Can we, I'm sorry, we're gonna take. All right, we're back to order. Sorry about that. Thank you for bearing with us there. No, I had to too. I had to.
so just to wrap that discussion up, it's not feasible to move that. Something I haven't done, but something I did for Hannah on several occasions was sit in her stand. So if it's where we can reasonably do so, I can have Chief Mitchell. He is the acting town manager. We can manage it, or I can.
But did it work for everybody to do the 29th? Yeah,
You mean June 29th?
June 29th.
I don't have my calendars.
I've got to get,
Why don't we do this? Why don't we check with Dick, and if he's, depending what his status is,
The 28th or the 18th, which is the regular meeting, he won't be.
right,
We
we
know
go,
that.
the 18th?
Because you already
That's
agreed
not
to
before.
it.
Oh, we already agreed to move it?
No,
Oh,
that's what I'm saying. If we move the meeting from the 11th to the 18th, he will not be able to be here on the 18th.
But you can be here on the 18th, right? Dan?
I'm looking.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. You can't be here on the 29th, though.
correct.
Let's check with Dick, and if he can be here on the 29th, then I say we go with the, move it 18th and 29th, we'll be down one person on each of those meetings. Is that okay?
You okay with that? I'm fine with
And
Okay.
again,
So tentatively,
I'm
June schedule is 6/18, moved from 611, and 629 moved from 622.
Okay.
18th
Tentatively.
being the regular meeting.
18th will be the regular evening 6:30 meeting, and the 29th will be the agenda meeting. And especially with someone missing it, no money issues,
Yeah,
all right? I know we've made exceptions, but especially with somebody missing.
and there's a good chance that's gonna be a tough one for me too, so.
All right, I need to move anything else on the June meeting? Okay, I need to move, board applications to the, bottom for a second. Centennial Play, what's this about?
A few weeks back, we had, Councilman Spalding brought, total, for a play being written and produced, for the Centennial. There was a cost, for creating the show, and that was just about it. We've asked that they give us more detail on those costs. Carol, 1, 2, please. And we've gotten that additional information in. And most of the items that are bulleted on the second page are given in a range. So if you look at the high end of all of those, and assuming that they put the play on 3 different occasions, you're looking at a potential of $8,000 associated with the project. So that's the information that we requested after it was initially came up. We have that, and it's per Dr. Spalding's request back on the table for discussion.
Do we have to do that now, or?
Well, here's the problem. It takes, he's the creator of the show is trying to get as much time to write it as possible, and to delay it gives him less time to create it. He needs at least 6 months minimum, and maybe a little bit more. So every bit that we delay, he can't do the research, or can't invest the time unless we give him the okay. And again, some of these things could fall back to volunteer actors as opposed to some of these prices. These are the worst case scenarios. If this was put on by another group where you don't have the volunteer actors to do it, but the 2,400, we let him go ahead and get started. He wanted a down payment of 600 to get started on this, so he could start investing the time. I would hope that we would make a commitment to this, and I think that this has longevity beyond just the Centennial, and that's why I am asking for consideration for this. This is one of the things that the committee wants to do.
All right, well, we still won't be approved until the April meeting, if we go forward.
Again, because of a decision for finances, or?
Yeah, we've said basically that we can discuss financial issues, but we weren't going to approve them at this meeting.
And
Okay.
beyond that, if
So if we agree
council
to it,
was
we go
to consider this and want to move forward, then I think we would have to actually draft an agreement with a not to exceed amount and all of that. This is a proposal, but we don't have an agreement, so we wouldn't be able to consider that.
I'm trying to
So if we-
give
right.
some kind of.
So if we agree here, between the 4 of us, that that's the right thing to do, that's what we want, that's what we want to spend the money on, and you're saying the Centennial Committee thinks this is an integral part of the celebration, and we want to move forward, it's obviously not budgeted yet, but I don't think they've used all their money
Right.
from their budget this year, so there should be money there for it.
At least for this.
But if we okay it here, we can get the contract done and bring it to the council for our Monday meeting.
Or can we not draft the 600 at least to give him the okay, because that's already in the budget.
We still gotta get the contract done, right?
I would think we would have to have one.
Why can't the Centennial Committee just spend the money that we've allotted in the budget? Why would they have to have a contract? If you guys chose to buy a series of banners, we wouldn't have to.
Yeah, I feel like we're micro.
They aren't making purchases, the town.
I recognize that, but if there's a set amount that they're willing to spend out of their budget, the town can write a check for.
No.
What can we do? What are our options, Carol?
Yeah.
Well, if this was us doing it, we just decided to take on this project, then the contract and agreement and all that I was just speaking of is something that we would make sure we had in place. Whether the council chooses to approve it,
Sure. As an
or
expenditure.
just as a, you don't have to formally approve this because of the amount. It's under $10,000. I think what's being sought is your approval. Regardless, we need an agreement in place. This is not, if it wasn't the Centennial Committee doing it and it was my process, we would have that contract that spelled out exactly what it was going to be based on this proposal, and there would be a not to exceed amount, and we would enter into that agreement. The request, as I understood it, was for council to approve it, thus you would do that at the next meeting. If council is saying that you don't need to or want to give formal approval, but then we would move forward with.
Does that align with what you?
I guess what I'd like is if you could draft a letter saying that we approve this, but we're pending a contract. Now, he provided, the details and the concept. This is a proposal as opposed to a contract. But if we could get something that would give this body authorization to proceed pending the contract, that at least he knows that that's been done, and can hand him a piece of paper stating that he could at least start the research component. The $600, it's almost like very nominal amount there just to get him over the hump.
I want to ask the difficult question. If musicians or singers or other folks are asked to perform, to dance, to draw, whatever, are we setting a precedent for,
And it may
that
be-
anyone who participates in the Centennial
would be paid.
to all be paid?
Again, these were worst case scenarios, what it would cost. If this goes beyond, say, multiple times, because they're suggesting that this could go on multiple places, like a church, like 3 or 4 other different venues, where they were collecting money to reimburse for the cost of the plays. These were the worst case scenarios that would come up based on his estimates. It could be that a lot of this stuff is volunteered and offered to where it would just, once we have the copyright, because he would write the copyright to the town of Sickle Mountain, we could hold this whenever we wanted to have an event like this. So to answer your question, apparently the answer is we got to wait till a contract occurs. But I'm just trying to give him as much time to write it, because that's going to be another 2 or 3 weeks. What is that going to
I
be?
think you can, here's my suggestion. If we agree that we want to make this expenditure, we've basically agreed. It still needs to come to us in the regular meeting to be voted on. But can we tell him, look, the council, even if we voted, yes, we're agreed to this, we do that, give him a comfort level so he can start, but know that we can't write anything, including the deposit, until it passes, and there's no guarantees, but it's passed unanimously or whatever, 3-1 from.
Something to that effect.
Would he be comfortable enough to start?
I
some
would
sort
think
of-
so, but I just wanted to give him something, you know, as a statement that we are
Okay.
intending to, you know, pending the contract.
Along the same vein, I had talked to Kyra and Patrick, and I thought they were coming to this meeting
That was my
to
understanding
give us a
too.
budget.
That was
so
my
it could be
understanding.
incorporated in, so we don't have that.
No, we don't have them
Have you
today.
received anything from them?
And I'm not
That's a
sure.
problem.
We'll look at what expenditures have been made. There was 10,000 allocated, and they have had meetings and stuff, but I don't know exactly how much has been expended.
Do you know, Bob?
She had a conflict with today, unfortunately.
I don't think I thought she told me they hadn't spent anything.
Virtually almost none as far as, other than,
Have you
I
written
think there
any
was some
checks for them?
food expense for a couple of the meetings, a couple of
Right,
food
that's on-
expenses.
yeah, I'm aware
And
of.
there's nothing else. Now, there was a website,
Design.
charge, not, again, it was a nominal charge. I think they bought domains, and I
Yeah, I
don't think
think
that they've actually.
Dave Wagner, someone did the whole design and everything for free. They just had to
Right.
pay the fee for the site.
Right. So, I mean, it's extremely, you know, it's under $500 probably, what they've spent so
I
far.
think it's more than that. I think it's under 2,000, but I think it's in that
So they'd
range.
still, with this 8,000, still be within their budget for the year.
I would think that they will be right at it.
I'll double check that.
Okay. Could somebody make a motion then to that effect?
Well, I want to clarify it. You guys ought to be able to spend the money whatever the committee decides. And if we have to make this decision, I want to decide that you're able to do that, and so I approve that. I want to be careful that we're not like voting for or against whether or not you should do this play or spend this money with this person. Does that make sense? So
I know it's all pending on contract, so, you know, essentially we're going as far as we can without making, violating any kind of town protocols for payment on something.
Now, like I said, this would not require council approval based on the amount of the expenditure.
Okay.
The only reason I'm,
Then we don't need to do it.
the only reason I'm doing it is to give the writer author the benefit of the council having discussed it and approved it, so he has a comfort feeling he can start because it will be voted on or talked about at the other meeting. Or do we just not have to do that?
They don't have to do
It sounds like we don't have to do that, and it's.
Are we pretty much in agreement as a council that this is fine?
I wouldn't go against almost any,
Bob, are you
any.
for it?
Am I for this? Yeah, absolutely. I'm
I don't
trying
have a
to
problem with it.
promote
They
it.
should be able to spend it how they want, we
Yeah.
approve the budget.
So you can go back and tell them that.
approve it.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
What would be the soonest? It would be our next meeting, town meeting, that we would have to cut them a check.
We don't have to approve it, they just need to get a contract and
Okay.
get his bill.
Soon as they
So
get
you're
contract.
writing the contract, or is he writing the contract?
If he has something he wants to submit,
Okay.
that's fine, otherwise we'll do it, but I do want to touch on one other point. One of the stipulations is here is that the completed show must be approved by the committee prior to going into production process, which would be the Centennial Committee. And that's
I mean, he's got to
kind
write
of
it.
goes along with why we're discussing this with council when it's only $8,000. It is a unique situation.
Right.
Is council comfortable with the committee being fully responsible for
Yeah.
approving?
So we're on the hook for
I'm not saying you
2,400.
should or shouldn't, I
We're on the
just
hook.
want to make
We're on
sure.
the hook for 2,400 if the committee decides not to go forward. For this, for the research, right?
I think well, yes,
Right?
It's
I
just
mean,
a
that's
play.
the case, but it's not a matter
It's a
of,
play for the Centennial.
I'm fully in favor of supporting Centennial making a decision on that. I think they're
So
fine.
pending a contract from him, or some facsimile of it, then you would come and check.
The committee would approve it, right?
Because they don't have a checkbook. They're,
Committee would submit an invoice or something from this guy and we pay.
That's something I really don't have a big issue with the $600 payment up front. Generally, all our payments are on delivery or post-service being delivered, but we can outline, because he says installments, we'll nail all that down as how it works.
We good? Don't have to vote anything there?
so I can tell them it's on, it's just
Yep.
pending that contract.
Yep.
Yeah.
As long as your Centennial committee votes,
Well, I mean,
that's what they want to do.
they did vote
Okay.
that they wanted to go ahead with it.
We can go to board applications now.
Originally, we had, 3, well, actually 4 appointments. But, I was contacted by Cheryl Graham, who's the chair of the planning commission. She's out of pocket and has some family issues going on and has asked, council to please postpone appointments to the planning commission until she has an opportunity to, take a look at this, and she'd like to weigh in on that
For the planning commission?
for the planning commission. So if there are no objections, they are one position short, but she said they are having no issues with quorums or anything like that, so she'd like to have a little extra time.
I would like to delay the appointment of the Parks Board, which is my board, because there are a couple more applications coming in and there are a couple more spots opening, and they don't meet, they're on a every 2 months period, so we will have met and been able to approve that before they meet again.
The other is.
You got Sam Powell and Bill Frank, and we're gonna have more openings. I'd rather just do them all at the same time and get Josh's feedback. Sorry.
Okay, the other is the vacancies on the MACC board, and they were, we have one application that is interested in that, but previously you decided to postpone that pending discussions on what pretty much began our meeting with the 501c3 scenario and all that, so. Just that these are positions, they're open, we have applications, so I wanted to make sure we're keeping up with the fact that they're to be dealt with at some point.
Again, a part of my studying process, and please nobody take this the wrong way, will there still be a MACC board under the scenario that's laid out in the MOU?
No.
It goes away?
As it exists now, I would think that that would be the case. The town could have a separate advisory board,
I didn't know because I hadn't been that far through
but again, that's all hypothetical.
it. Okay.
If
It's not
the
addressed
MACC doesn't-
specifically in here.
If the MACC is no longer a town function, then that advisory board to town council would have a completely different, maybe the same people, but the scenario does change.
Okay.
How is going to be up to council.
Any other board applications we need to look at?
That's it. We do have other openings, and we'll
Still have
continue to
openings?
advertise.
On yours?
I don't know.
Okay. Anybody else on that?
I thought we had a resignation from the DRC. Did we approve one last time?
As we, I'll have to look. We approved those that council had agreed upon. We have gotten in applications for the planning commission. The others that we've advertised, we've yet to receive applications for, so we will push that out again and see if we can solicit applications.
No, they have a meeting, the DRC, this coming Tuesday for 2 issues. Again, I'll be in training, so I won't be able to attend that. If Dick is back and he wants to attend it Tuesday, then that would be good.
All right, moving on. Batting cage project. Boy, we didn't-
Yeah, we've discussed this in the past. The baseball league has offered a $30,000 donation to the town. Originally, they looked at just trying to replace the batting cages that were damaged. As we discussed it, we looked at what the town might be able to do to partner. Agreed to kind of expand that project. There were basically just 2 batting cages there, and you guys know how many kids we've got going. So we've undertaken the project. We're gonna basically double that. We've gotten the bid on the pad for that. It's $26,400. We anticipate that the actual batting cages are gonna be about that same amount. So their $30,000 donation will be more than 50%. And we have funds in facilities that we were gonna use at another rec location that we're holding off on in anticipation of the grant we discussed earlier.
So we have the money set aside?
Yeah,
Okay.
right, we do. So, and I have explained that being a work session, we generally don't approve these things. And I think the mayor has expressed that as well, but just wanted to let you guys know, we did get the bid in, and we have the funds to cover it. We get permission to move forward now that we know that we can participate at the level anticipated. Then I can give them the form for the donation, what our role will be, have that agreement in place. We will have the bid in for the cages prior to our regular meeting as well, and we can move forward.
I told, Mark called me and obviously chomping at the bit to get going on it, but I told him that at this meeting, you'll get a sense that it's gonna go forward, and I strongly support it, but we won't vote on it until the regular meeting in April 9th.
Okay. Can we make an exception to that since baseball season is starting? It's not money that we don't have, we're not spending out of budget, it's money allocated for that purpose, right?
I understand, I just don't, I mean, we said we weren't gonna do that sort of thing, so I just, you know, I'm only one now.
Does anybody else, does everybody have the same?
I mean, if it's been allocated, I mean, again, these are exceptions that, just like we saved a lot of money by voting on the fire station for exceptional deal, that was something that we had, remember when we approved or we voted on something about the fire station to save money by getting a bid in on time.
And it's probably the fire apparatus.
Fire apparatus, I mean, I can't remember exactly but
a
there
fire
was an
truck.
exception to that on a expensive piece of equipment.
I'm just saying, by the time we get through all this, we're gonna be halfway through the season. And I don't think it's fair to the citizens to wait when it's not something we're doing out of what's already been allocated. Now, if it were, I would be in a total agreement, but it's something we've talked about, and they're coming to us with money, and I would feel the same way in any other avenue that came to us with money willing to spend.
You can always make a motion in a second, but let me read it first, just for the record. Yes?
Because we haven't gotten to that.
Huh?
We haven't gotten to that
resolution
so
yet.
it would require.
Right, okay. Resolution number 2018-24, resolution authorizing the town manager to award a contract to Brian Sitten Construction Company for an amount not to exceed $26,400 as the lowest and best bid for the site preparation and installation of concrete pad to facilitate installation of batting cages adjacent to Rutledge Field for the town of Signal Mountain.
I would entertain making a motion that we make an exception to go ahead and accept it just because time constraints.
A second. Thank you, Dan.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I'm abstaining.
Yay, okay, good. We got something done.
And it's my understanding that was that,
The resolution.
you were approving the resolution or his motion to make an exception?
That was the resolution, the red caption of the resolution.
He
Yeah,
was
the
saying, I'm
resolution
making-
was the,
Okay, all right.
but that was.
We moved into resolutions.
Okay, that gets rid of discussion, and we're only an hour 45 in. Resolutions to award contract, oh, just did that. Authorizing THSO Grant Application. Resolution number 2018-23, resolution authorizing the chief of police to apply for a grant from the Tennessee Highway Safety Office in an amount not to exceed $15,000, which will result in payment for equipment and overtime to be provided as highway traffic safety grant for law enforcement activities to reduce speeding, aggressive driving, driving under the influence, and non-seatbelt usage for children and passengers within motor vehicles in the town.
Make a motion to accept.
Second?
Can you explain this before we?
Sure, this is a grant that we apply for annually. It's 100%. They apply for what equipment they need. Sometimes it's radar units, maybe breathalyzers. This year, I think they are looking to replace some new radar units. And the remainder is used to pay overtime for special traffic enforcement details. And it's
Who made the motion? Second?
Amy?
Second?
Okay. Discussion? Annie? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries 4-0. 7, board liaison reports. Amy, you want to start?
Well, I think we just dealt with rec, so that's all I've got. We,
Can you talk about the grant for driver's field? So you guys, it went through your committee, right?
I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
yeah, they had a meeting of the rec board to present the
Sorry.
concept of
No, that's
the
okay.
grant, and they voted in support of it, which is one of the requirements for it was a call meeting to accomplish that requirement for the grant.
So so it's moving forward.
It is. That's the one where
The only issue is the bids came in higher than expected, and we're working on getting them down.
the estimated cost, I think we got a Cadillac version, and we're gonna have to work on getting it up to an affordable point, but yes,
Will
it is moving.
Will Bill be happy? That's my only question.
We're gonna do everything we can.
So I'm making notes. Dr. Spalding?
I was hoping to have Kyra here. What I was gonna do, since we keep having these problems, I would like for her to prepare, to come perhaps to our regular meeting, since, that's at night and maybe the conflicts won't be as problematic, and have her give a report on the Centennial at our next, because I guess when they call them into court or whatever, you gotta go. And so that's what I'm gonna suggest for that. The DRC again meets this Tuesday. Hopefully Dick can meet with them on those two agenda topics, and I don't have anything else as far as the board report.
I think it's very important that they get a budget into our folks as soon as possible. Because if you're deep into the process, we're gonna,
No, you're right.
okay. I know they're volunteers, but we gotta get that one done.
Right.
Dan? Just briefly, the library board met the night that everything else was called off because of storms, but things are going swimmingly well, and their activities that they're having are all being well attended, so Karen is just doing an amazing job.
Can you talk about the planning commission a little bit? Because we got a couple of those big rezoning things coming. Can you
Well,
just so the public knows where we are?
we haven't had a meeting since the Coffin Way came back up, so there's nothing I can really say about that because it hasn't happened yet. And
And The Keith Corporation resubmitted? I mean, I haven't seen the.
That's what I'm saying, the Coffin Way, but.
Oh, that's Coffin Way, okay.
Yeah.
It was Albert's the other one?
But we haven't, that's in the hands of council now,
Okay.
so that's not planning commission anymore, so we won't know anything.
So there hasn't been a meeting since our last.
When's the next meeting?
I don't know, when's it, next Thursday, for 2 weeks? I can look.
I can look it up, I just was, I didn't know.
Okay, anything else?
I'd like to know that.
Now, we rezoned the restaurant for a daycare, right? On that,
No, we changed the zoning so that the current zoning for that building would allow daycare.
are they pursuing that at this time? Or I saw it was
I
up for
haven't seen
sale.
anything else on
Yeah,
Is that the one with all the picket fences? Things missing on the white fences?
I don't know, is
Isn't that
it,
by
Sirens
the
used to
front, yeah, sirens.
I just didn't know if that was something.
Oh, sirens, okay.
Maybe that should be new business as opposed to,
it.
I just didn't know what the,
That action wasn't specific to that business.
Okay.
It just changed the zoning so that that type of business would be allowed there. And I don't know at what point they are in that process, or if she's abandoned it.
I guess I better hold the other one. I was wondering if there'd been any other more activity when they applied for their beer permit here for that.
Oh, over here?
And are they moving towards occupying that building down there at the Espresso Mart?
I know they pulled permits, but I don't,
For God's sakes, can we get them to repaint it at least?
And what about Taco Bell?
I haven't checked
Who
on
is
that
that?
recently.
And then like Amy just brought up Taco Bell, is there
I get
anything?
so many complaints
Chuck
about
Pruitt
that.
owns it.
Oh, he bought it
He
or?
bought it
Oh, when did he buy it?
just a couple months ago.
I saw someone in there. the
Oh,
other day.
he'll probably do something with it though.
Yeah,
and I think
Pruitt's
they-
has turned out amazing.
I think he's waiting to see what happens with Keith.
The construction sign that was over at Pruitt's has now been moved over there, so I think it was a matter of
Getting the project
having one major project going and
I'm encouraged that he's the one who
Hey,
bought it
I tell you
though, so
what,
that's
I've been over there
exciting.
lunch at the new place probably once a week for the last several weeks.
So good.
Oh, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. They really did a nice job. They really did it.
Really, really
It's
good.
classy.
And one of the things the DRC was I was trying to promote awards. One of the awards that we were trying to bestow for Hummingbird for their several years ago for their, and then by the same token for this one, I would like to see them get some kind of little award for improving
No,
the.
I think that's a great
I
idea.
love that idea.
For investing the money to that, I think that's, we might want to hold off on that though for a little bit. Right?
I don't know if that's something the DRC would do.
Why don't you take it back to them and see if they would?
They said that they would direct those kind of awards toward commercial. When we start talking about residential, then they said that they really
I
didn't.
don't think, I think they did such a good job with Pruitt's over there, it looks so good. If we could get that whole corridor to have that mountain stone and wood, I mean, that'd just be classy. A hell of a lot better than the strip malls look now. But I agree with you, I'd fully support if they're gonna give him a little plaque or something. Any other questions on that?
Not on that, I had one more under new business.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Wait, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, manager's report.
Yeah, let's go managers reports.
Well, we've gone through most of what I would have to say between the water RFP and everything else that's taken up quite a bit of time. Finalizing the draft documents again for the MACC lease and MOA. The fire station is moving along very well, even with the bad weather. They're actually coming out of the ground now. You can see the building coming up. Chief Mitchell said they are pushing very hard to give us the keys to that building well ahead of schedule. And we are still at
When we
this
say
point-
well, what is well?
I think October. if
So
I'm
by
not
the end of the year,
mistaken.
they're expecting.
Oh, yeah, October is the contract date, they're hoping they'll be ahead of September.
They really have been.
Maybe the end of August.
I've been very impressed with their work out there. They're plowing through.
So good, and we are, at this point, still have actually identified cost reductions and anticipate some others, so we're ahead of schedule and under budget and doing everything we can to keep both of those that way. The only other thing, Sam and I will be out next Monday and Tuesday at a TML conference, be in the rest of the week.
Nashville?
Yeah.
Notice I
Hey,
didn't
Boyd,
get mine.
what is the process for the water system? So we have 2 more meetings, and then what's the next step after that? Do we meet as a council just to discuss that when we're actually talking about debating on which company to go with?
Well, I think after those 3 meetings, my recommendation would be for citizen input meetings.
Okay.
To hear from the citizens, and then begin the discussion process and
So we're looking at a couple
give
months.
direction.
You thinking? And then as far as the MACC, I just want to clarify for when I put all this in my calendar. So the 24th, right, is that the day that we said, yeah? We're meeting at 6:30 to go over all of this, so we need to be all prepared
For the
for the
MACC,
stuff we weren't prepared for today. And we'll make a decision at that point?
And
Or are we just gonna talk about it and then have another date to make a decision? I would like to start moving forward on it if possible.
Yeah, anything we could do to expedite the.
I just feel like, I mean, because that's the complaint, is everyone,
We have a
and I don't
public
blame the
meeting.
citizens, I'm just
If
as frustrated, let's
we
move
have a public
forward.
meeting and make a motion, then we have to address the issue. You know, I have a concern because I don't think if we get the numbers and everything, but I'd like to wait until the regular meeting if we're gonna spend some more money.
Okay, so we're gonna
And
meet
that's
on the
not that far
24th.
away.
Okay, so we'll meet on the 24th, have all of our ducks in a row, and then we'll make a decision on the following meeting. That's fine, as long as I have a plan. I feel a lot better.
I'm just one, so it's whatever.
Are you okay with that, Dan? I'm fine with the money thing, unless there's a time constraint like we just did for baseball. So.
All right,
Go
ahead, I'm sorry, Dan.
We really don't have to discuss this again, because we beat this to death, but would you sprinkle the back half of the building if you were gonna sell it? Would you do the extra money? Would you ask?
I don't know what that has to do with it.
It has everything to do with it.
Maybe it's
I don't see that that's a
I think it's a
reality
separate issue.
about selling the building. I mean, for me, at this time.
Would you do it if you're gonna lease it to somebody from 20 years?
Yeah, because you'd still own it.
Yeah, we don't.
Well, I mean,
For 20 years, geez.
anything to expedite the use of that,
Check it to 2 years.
anything to expedite the use of that building, with all the dark clouds that have been over this whole project, I'm all for it. To get them in there to do the play so they can continue to, to just,
Yeah,
one
I
thing propagates the other, and so we need that goodwill going as hard as we can on that MACC. So that's just my.
Appreciate that.
Okay, but we're all
Anything
on the
else?
same page, right? We're gonna discuss this on the 24th and then make some sort of decision on the following meeting, right?
Can't predict, but yeah. that looks
Well, that's
like
the
way it's
plan,
going.
Or
and
have
obviously
it-
something could come up.
Have it on the
Just
agenda.
have some
Got
sort
it,
of
okay,
direction.
thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to belabor that.
What else? Other business? Other business, Bob?
Oh, I'm sorry, just an idea. I'm a newcomer to all the sports activities with a little 4-year-old grandson, and I noticed the other day when there was bad weather and raining, they still had a meeting over there at those little ball fields on Timberlinks, and what struck me is that they didn't really have an area to assemble or have picnics or have meetings, where maybe a little weather came up and they could get out in the shelter and then they get back out there and play. But anyway, a pavilion, if we could look at the possibility of putting a pavilion out there, I think that would be a good thing to put on our wish list, if and how that would be obtained. Because there's so much use of that out there. I think that would foster more use of it and give a safe place and a place for them to eat while they're, I mean, if they're gonna have 4-year-olds out there at 6 and 7 o'clock playing ball, they need a place to eat and they need a place to family gathers. And so those are just, as a newcomer to the parks, questions that come up that I would like to see maybe.
There's also some sort of safety shelter in case
Right.
of a quick storm comes in,
Right.
but,
I'd be happy to bring that to
Okay.
the rec board
I
and
just
see if
wanted-
we can incorporate it in the
Kimberly.
playground, because that would be
I
great.
wanted to funnel
Love
that question to somebody who's handling
Love
those.
I think, yeah,
it's
but I think it
fantastic.
needs to be addressed in the budget to make sure we have, that's my only comment on it. Is that
Or
it?
we could bring it also to the board, because
Okay.
they have a really wealthy
Good,
fundraising,
good.
so I'll talk to both.
Anything else?
No.
Dan? I've got, unfortunately, I've got 5 things.
I didn't mean wealthy, I meant
Um,
strong, like fundraising
sure.
capacity.
I met with Chief Williams and a gentleman from a company called Aegis. Aegis is a group that offers support, counseling, buys equipment for, and supports our police and firefighters. And they do that for free. And the whole premise is they go out to private donors and look to get money so they can provide these services.
How do you spell it?
Aegis, A-E-G-I-S. And they provide these private services. I would like us, because they do provide those services to us, and they provide them for free, but I would like the council to consider in next year's budget, giving them $10,000 because of the good works they do, and basically for all the folks, our folks that they take care of. And I've talked to Chief Mitchell and Chief Williams on this, and given all our folks over there, I think they're an excellent support group to have that. So I would like us to consider that. I'm not asking for anything right now, but I think that's a good thing we can do for them, who does great things. You know, anywhere from alcohol, marital counseling, you know, to buying them equipment that we may not have bought.
So
that
they're a
they can afford.
nonprofit group, okay?
Yes. And Boyd, at some point, as it goes farther, can talk to it because he is familiar with it. I don't know if he agrees with me, but if you have questions, you can inquire with Boyd. I have been in contact with Bo Watson's office, Patsy Hazelwood's office, Corker's office, on since this security issue at schools, since the Parkland issue has come up, and everybody's throwing legislation together, both on the state level and federal level, to look for what continues to be my biggest fear and concern out there is the entrance into the high school. If you go there during the hour time period where the school's going in at Nolan, or it is coming out at Nolan, you can't get back to the high school. That is a time when, and especially in the afternoon, when all the sports teams are playing and practicing. If you had a major accident where somebody fell, hurt themselves, broke their neck, you know, life and death type situation, and or if you had a Parkland type situation where you know, somebody went in there and threatened, and it's not too far out of the realm of possibility. We're seeing it everywhere, but in the last 2 years, they've had to discipline 2 kids who were making some threats. So this continues to be a big issue, but I've approached them trying to get some money, or at least seed money, in the state budget security bill that they're putting together, and the federal. And I heard back from Corker's office, but they could not get us in anything, but Bo and Patsy are still trying. Our options are, because they priced it out 3 years ago, are to widen Sam Powell, which is the least expensive. It's around $650,000. And then the other, which is replacing the entrance, separate entrance that was removed during the construction. Somebody decided to take that out. So hopefully if we can get some seed money, we can get the county and possibly HCD to work with us to help alleviate that concern. They did a what do you call it, drill over there where they the county included our folks, because we're gonna be naturally the first responders up here, because we're the closest. But they all identified that, you know, if somebody really wanted to do some damage, they're gonna drop a tree over there across the road and then go shoot the place up.
Yeah, let's
Because the
not have
police
that
can't
report.
get back there and they'd have to, you know, more than a half mile on foot. So we're looking at that. Bo and Patsy both said they'll do what they can, but it's not that big, so they don't know if they'll be able to do that. But that continues to be a huge concern, and we really haven't heard any movement from the folks who told us they were working on it. So we'll see what
I've been
happens.
talking about that since
Oh, I know.
office, so
Yeah.
I am.
I think a lot of us
I
have.
mean, we're,
A lot of
like,
us have, yeah.
you and.
I'm not asking
both
for any
chiefs
money.
out there?
I'm not asking for any money, I'm not asking to, I'm just saying that that's one of my pet peeve projects. I'm trying to get them to at least grant us as a town some money so we can contribute to a solution with the county and HCD.
That
if
has to
possible.
happen.
I know.
That has to happen.
Next for fire and police. Fire and police, part of the fire and police with the new fire station is they're gonna have a sort of gym over there where the fire and policemen can go over and work out and stay fit. You know, some of them have to sleep overnight there because there's 3 shifts. There's an opportunity, and both Chief Mitchell and Chief Williams went over to one of the citizens, actually in Walden, who's moving and has $25,000 worth of high-end, hardly used equipment. And they were gonna staff that thing and pay for it anyways. But this family is willing to give it to the police and fire for $10,000 to equip the fire station out there with stuff we're gonna have to buy anyways. So I just want that kind of on your radar, because I think number one, it's a really good deal, and it gets it right away without having to, saving about 15 grand. So just,
If I may,
Yes.
just to be accurate, that isn't something that's been budgeted or accounted for yet.
Yeah, they won't
The- the-
donate it?
The space is there for future use.
Fire department.
my point is, with a deal like this and budgeting come out, it might be something we want to consider to put in the police and fire budget to take care of our police and fire. I'm talking with Tracy Cox, is that our judge?
Yes.
Judge Cox about what we talked about before and trying to allow, as opposed to fees or court costs, the ability to have folks pick up trash up and down the highway or anywhere else up here if they get in trouble. The issue right now, which we're working through with Chief Williams and potentially Chief Mitchell and her, is who would oversee that problem. But
We would.
well, it would have to be police or fire to do it, as they do kind of on the road. I think that'd be a great use. You know, we see folks out there, great folks, volunteer citizens who are walking up and down the mountain, picking up trash.
That'll
and
slow them
helping
down.
out. Yeah, so,
Be embarrassed.
we're still working through that, and if it goes any further, we'll obviously bring it to the council before we start something, because there's insurance issues in that.
Was that Tracy's idea?
No, I think it was mine.
Well, good idea.
I had an idea. 1. 5, coming in front of us shortly is going to be the rezoning of Albert, which is the second, will be the second reading, right? And you weren't there, so you need to get up to speed before that vote. I've been getting hit by a lot of emails.
I've been reading the emails.
Yeah. A few for, but most from those neighborhoods against. And then I haven't seen, but I'd like a copy of the Keith Corporation thing. I really like what they did as far as the center around the strip. What I'm not happy with is the big box store. So I'm wondering if we can get them to redo the strips without doing a big box store. Now, I have talked to Chuck Pruitt on it, and I think there's some room to get something that might complement the downtown. But I'm more interested. I'm really down on the big box piece of it, and I don't think I could approve it because of that. But what they've done that I've seen in that area would be absolutely gorgeous, I think. You know, the outdoor dining and the upgrades they did, you then have a flow between Pruitt's and those strip malls, and they all look with the wood and the mountain stone, so I was very pleased with what they've come back with. And those are my 4 things. Any questions?
One thing,
Yeah.
with the fire department, when they transition from that, almost like a mini substation they put out there on Timberlinks, what will they repurpose that building for?
Well, their use of the building is actually a repurposing as it is. That's, the recreation department is housed there. We put in some walls and all put some bedrooms and all. There's already bathroom, shower facilities there, so it will revert to just being the rec department, and we're gonna look at, since we have those rooms built, we may allocate those to different departments for storage or use or something like that, but Jared and them didn't move out, they just
Okay.
sharing space.
Gotcha.
And I will say, since you mentioned that, even just having those guys there, and as the weather improves, we'll put an engine there, but since we don't have a place to put it out of the weather, we've been waiting on that, but just having them there with that squad truck, we've had several medical calls that it made a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good use of that
Ridge,
building.
and Wintry in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Great.
It's gonna be great.
Could I, in other business, I mean, are those open discussion items, is that okay?
Yeah.
Just as a quickie, and just 2 very fast statements, that unless we have design standards, town design standards, we're up to what the builder proposes to do. And then, then the DRC kicks in, I mean, if we are looking for those things. And unless we have maximum building sizes in our uniform design codes, people could propose whatever they want to. So the only way to get that is for us to take a look at some codes that restrict.
Well, we can do the same thing we did with the other developer.
We're,
It's the same process.
and we have that option,
Yeah.
since we're one of
We're
two
one of the
towns.
2 counties that can sit down and write an agreement. We don't have to have a code for everything. Correct?
You have that option, yes.
What was the second?
I think that was the second.
Oh, that was the second? Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna let council know too, I think I missed 2 meetings, and I don't know, in case I haven't told you, I have gone back to work, so there will be times that I will have to miss because of work, but I'm gonna do the best I can to work around that, but there will be times. So I'm not just blowing it off or quitting. I just wanted to let you know.
All right. Anybody else? Carol? Boyd? Anything? Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you all very much.